Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Today, we are going to talk about types of families. Since this week's theme is about family, so today we're going to talk about types of families in the modern world. All right. So, what do we actually mean when we say family? Most of you hear this word. Most of you hear this word, but you think you know, but maybe you don't know what is family. Maybe you have an idea of what family is. So, when we talk about family today, we no longer talk about a single universal model that applies to everyone. Instead, family has become a social concept shaped by culture, history, economics, and personal choice. In many traditional societies, family was once a rigid structure. People were born into it, stayed within it, and often lived their entire lives surrounded by relatives. Family then dictated identity, profession, marriage, and even social status. In the modern world, however, family has become more fluid and adaptable. People move for education and work, marry later, or not at all, sometimes form households that look nothing like the traditional image. Family can now mean biological relatives, legal guardians, step relatives, or even people who are not related by blood but share deep emotional bonds. What truly defines a family today is long term commitment, emotional support, shared responsibility, and also a sense of belonging. Whether a family is large or small, traditional or modern, individualistic or collectivist, lies in how members care for one another. So let's start with this question. Most of you hear nuclear family, but you don't know what it is. A nuclear family usually consists of two parents and their children living in a single household, parents, father, and a mother. Here, they are separate from the extended family. They don't have grandparents or uncles or aunts living with them. Basically, they are alone. The daily life in a nuclear family often revolves around the parents as the central decision makers. They manage finances and education, discipline, and household responsibilities with minimal involvement from grandparents or other relatives. This family model places a strong emphasis on privacy, independence, and self management. Family matters are often kept within the household, and external interferences are limited. The home becomes a private space where personal values and routines are developed without constant negotiation with a wider family network. So, in recent years, we've seen this surge of nuclear families. Why is this the case, though? This rise of the nuclear family is closely linked to individualization and urbanization. As people moved to cities for work, living near extended family was no longer practical. Smaller homes, demanding work schedules, and geographic mobility made large households difficult to maintain. You cannot really live with your parents forever if your work is far away from you, right? If there is sometimes so much drama in your parents' house, you naturally want to leave. You don't want to stay there. You want to de stress, so to speak. Over time, the nuclear family becomes associated with modern life, efficiency, and progress. Governments, workplaces, and housing policies in many Western countries were designed around this model, reinforcing its dominance. Like they don't want you to stay with your parents forever. They don't want you to be closely connected to your parents or relatives. They want you to be individualistic. They want you to be independent, so to speak. But what do we stand to gain from being in a nuclear family, so to speak? One key advantage is clear authority and structure. If you are the only parent or the only decision maker, there is nobody else to interfere with that. Nobody. no external authority that is going to interfere. Parents can make decisions quickly and raise children according to their own values. This often leads to obviously consistency in parenting and a stable home environment. If, let's say, you live with your grandparents and they have a different way of teaching, maybe they're prone into beating instead of like just talking as a way of disciplining the child, then that's not going to work. There is going to be a clear disconnect in how things should be done in the family. So that there is going to be inconsistency in how you raise your kids. Children in nuclear families frequently develop independence at an earlier age. They learn how to solve problems on their own, manage responsibilities, and prepare for life outside the family unit. Emotional bonds between parents and children can be very strong because attention is focused on a smaller number of people. However, this independence can sometimes come at a cost of reduced emotional and practical support, especially during crises such as illness or unemployment or childcare challenges. Everything is with its quirks. Nothing is going to be perfect. So even if you live in a nuclear family, you are going to have problems. You run from problems and you're going to get into some problems, but not so much so if you still live with your parents. So you might heard another adjacent term like the nuclear family. You might have heard small family. So a small family typically refers to parents raising one or two children. We're not talking about being with your parents or being separate from your parents. We're talking about you raising one or two children. So most of the time, this choice of having only one child or children, it is deliberate. It reflects your lifestyle, economic pressure, maybe your personal values too. You don't want too many children. Maybe you've lived in a family where you have or had too many children and don't want to be in a family like that. You experienced the suffering that goes along when you have too many children. There is going to be so much competition, right? So in many societies, having fewer children is no longer seen as a failure or limitation, but it's a conscious decision. You want to have only one child or only two. You don't want to have more. You want to have the perfect life for your child, and therefore having only one or two would be doable as opposed to having like three or four or five. So modern parents often prioritize educational well-being and quality of life over traditional expectations. So what do we stand to gain from having a small family? So one major benefit is intensive parental involvement. Parents usually have more time and emotional energy to devote to each child. If you have only one, then two parents have too much to give, so to speak. But if you have five, can you really do it? Can you really do it? Like ask yourself, can you do it if you have five or four? It's going to be really difficult to do. Children might receive more guidance, again, support and encouragement, which can in long term positively affect their confidence and of course their academic development. If say your child fails at school, you can encourage them, you can be confident, you can boost their confidence, you can tell them, look, you can help them, you can even help them, right? You have a few hours to spare after work and you can literally help and guide your children to change the way to do things and also succeed academically. So smaller families also tend to experience less daily chaos and stress. Household routines are easier to manage, conflicts may be fewer, and parents can maintain a better work-life balance. On the other hand, children in small families might have fewer opportunities to learn social negotiation skills that often maybe comes naturally in larger households, such as maybe sharing space and also attention. So again, if you were willing to trade this, but I think you can also maybe involve your kids in like clubs, right? Send them to certain like sports clubs or swimming clubs, right? Or book clubs, right? And then they are by default are gonna get these social skills that maybe they lack in their at home, right? Okay. Now there is another third term that we talked about the nuclear family, the small family, now the extended family. So an extended family includes grandparents, extended, right? Extended, children, and often other relatives who live together to maintain close daily contact. I feel like I was lucky I did not grow up in an extended family, so all the shenanigans and the drama over grandparents is obviously gone. So life in an extended family is deeply interconnected. Responsibilities such as children, cooking, financial support, and elder care are shared rather than handed by one or two individuals. Children grow up surrounded by multiple generations, learning not only from their parents, but also from grandparents and other relatives. Elders remain active participants in family life rather than becoming socially isolated. The greatest strength of an extended family is the collective support. In times of difficulty, family members rarely face problems alone. You get emotional comfort, you get also practical help, and sometimes financial assistance. You're rarely left alone, right? So you can face anything that and emerge from it unscathed. Extended families also serve as guardians of culture and tradition. Language, customs, moral values, and collective memory are passed down naturally through daily interactions. This creates a strong sense of identity and continuity. However, extended families can also face challenges such as lack of privacy and generational conflict, especially when values differ. Your parents think in a way, your grandparents think in a different way. So there is going to be clash, there is going to be conflict. Again, to go back to the previous point, we talked about how children should be raised. Should you beat them? Should you scream at them? Or should you just talk to them and use a modern way of teaching, right? Now, one of the most important concepts and terms related to family is this individualistic and collectivist family. These two models are completely different. So let's talk about them today. In individualistic cultures, the family is seen as a foundation that prepares individuals to eventually live independently. They don't want you to stay with your parents. Children are encouraged to express opinions, pursue personal goals, and make life choices based on personal fulfillment. Something that makes you happy, you do it. You don't do something because your parents told you to or what's efficient. You do something because it makes you happy. If I want to be an artist, but my parents want me to be an engineer, if I live in an individualistic family, I would be an artist, right? But if I live in a collective family and I want to be an artist, I will be an engineer because my family will decide that, not me. So this model promises again self-confidence, independence, and the adaptability. You can do whatever you want. People are often better prepared to handle change and also live in diverse environments. So when you once decide to leave your parents, it's going to be easier for you to adapt because you were raised or you were prepared for this from early on in your life. In collectivist families, however, family members are deeply interconnected. Decisions about education, marriage, and career are often made with the family's interest in mind rather than the individual preference. If you want to marry somebody, you cannot marry them because you love them or you like them. You have to marry them because your parents like them, right? You have to get their blessing to get married. A collectivist family is good because it provides this lifelong emotional and practical support. Individuals rarely feel isolated, and responsibility for children is almost always shared, right? You don't raise the child alone. Basically, it is raised by your grandparents and also by you, maybe also your aunt or uncles if they live there too. So individualistic families tend to be spread in Western Europe, are some also in North America and also Australia. However, collectivist family tend to be in Asia, Africa, Middle East, Latin America. I think it just this is how it is spread. Now I think things are changing, so most people are now becoming individualistic. I guess that is going to change in the future. No family structure is perfect, regardless of the type. Each has its strengths and limitations, shaped by culture, religion, economy, and history. What really matters here is the emotional safety, mutual respect, communication, and stability you get in being in a family. If you don't get that, then the concept of family shatters. A successful family, whether nuclear, extended, small, individualistic, or collectivist, is one where people feel seen, supported, and valued. If you're not valued or seen, if you need help, but nobody helps, then there is something missing from the family. All right, everybody. Hopefully you like the podcast. Until then, bye.